Hello, family, and welcome to another episode of Role Model Experts Cafe. I'm your host, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer, and today with me, I have an amazing lady, Miss Tiffany West. I hope I said your name correctly, right, Tiffany? Very
Yes,
good. Um, Tiffany has been in our community, and I love what she does and how she shows up in the world. So I thought parent entrepreneurs, maybe would be interested in knowing more about what she does. So thank you for taking the time being here, Tiffany, and telling us a little bit more about yourself. Can you let us know your background and how you got involved doing what you do? And we'll go from there.
absolutely. Thank you, Dr. L. It's such a pleasure to be here. Hi, everybody. Well, my name again is Tiffany West. I am an emotional care coach. My business is interior health design. So it's all about healthy living and soul-based healing from the inside out. I've got my certification as a health and life coach. And my journey started because my health wasn't the best. And even back to when I was a young child, being able to link all of the symptoms I was having in my health back to my sensitivity as a child and early childhood trauma, emotional trauma that I had experienced, but it had gone under the radar because I didn't know it was there. So it brought me into a really scary place as I was a single mom in my 20s. And when I hit into my 30s and my oldest son was only about 2 or 3 years old, I started to have really debilitating health issues. I was trying to work full time, take care of him full time, and just keep up with the busy demands of life, and my body was not having it. I started to experience an array of symptoms: chronic pain, digestive issues, hair loss, eczema, asthma, allergies, ulcerative colitis. I mean, you name it. Heartburn, GERD. There were so many things that started to fire off in my health, and I was not able to get the help that I needed from our traditional medical system. They didn't see anything wrong. They did their best for over 10 years to test me and give me MRIs and CAT scans and blood work. And I tried different specialists. I tried all kinds of holistic modalities, and it just wasn't working. So that set me on a path to start to really learn my body and understand the connection between our emotional health and our physical and mental well-being. And so that's what got me into the realm of doing my emotional care. I was very burnt out, stressed, and I wasn't giving my body what I needed. And there were some underlying emotional wounds that I needed to heal. And my body was trying to tell me that through all of my symptoms. And I started to notice the same in my clients as well. When I started health coaching, they just couldn't get past certain habits or they couldn't stick with them. And so that really helped me continue to do the research on what is going on when we can't just use mindset to override bad habits and things of that nature. And I've just been so excited to be on this journey of learning the connection between our emotional health and wellness and the rest of the health of our life, our physical, mental, financial, and spiritual health. And that has, in a nutshell, what brought me here today.
Awesome. I'm loving it, Tiffany. Everything you're describing, I experienced in private practice as well. Especially, I think there is this disconnect. Nowadays, we hear about mental health all the time. And when people talk about mental health, they think of the cognitive part, the part where you're
Yes.
thinking and you're focusing and you're making decisions. But the reality of it is that we as human beings are emotional creatures, and many times we have emotions that are based on certain balance of neurotransmitters in our brain, and when that is off, we look in the world for proof and confirmation of why we feel the way that we do. And it has nothing to do with the world around us, but actually what's going on emotionally inside of us. So that's one of them. The other part that you mentioned is the fact that we know that, if you worry too much, you might end up with ulcers, or, it can affect your immune system. But we don't connect the dots that, your brain and your mind and body, they're connected.
Yes.
So if you have emotional imbalances, it's going to affect your physical being as well. And if you have physical imbalances, many times you can go back to the brain and see how it's affecting your brain. So truly amazing. I love the fact that you really focus on it from that perspective. Now, many of the families that are probably watching this, they have struggles as parents and as adults. And we are now seeing that this is also manifesting more and more in kids. So tell us a little bit more about what challenges are you seeing in the field, especially when it pertains to with the children, parents dealing with the children, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a study out there called, the ACEs score, and that's, early childhood, adversities that happen when we're children. And that study, it's been around for a long time, but it really focuses on physical traumas that we experience as children and how that ripples out into our lives as adults.
Mm.
And what I found is there's a little loophole in there with, yes, there's so much love and compassion and healing that gets to happen around physical traumas that happen, such as, being in a war, being sexually, physically abused, attacks, car accidents, things like that, and the effect that that has on our nervous system. And what I'm finding has gone under the radar is the more subtle emotional traumas and relational traumas that we just don't really recognize as a big deal because there's no physical scarring. And so those are the symptoms that I see in my clients and in the people out there today with their children, as far as the mental and emotional development of children, the symptoms of bad behavior, kids that can't settle down, or parents that are just overly stressed. It's because of this ACEs, this adversity that we experienced as children, and because it's emotional and because there's no scarring, oftentimes I'm seeing that it goes overlooked as far as the root to why we're experiencing those symptoms, and then why that is kind of being transferred over to our children unknowingly, because us as parents, we're not healing our trauma because we're not aware that it's there. And like you said, a lot of emotional trauma just goes overlooked. You just need to get over it. You need to think yourself out of it. You need to be more successful. It's not something that we really stop and nurture and meet those emotional needs. And when we don't do that, we can't function as adults or children with a regulated nervous system. And so that's a lot of the work that I do, is really noticing the symptoms that come in the form of anxiety, depression, chronic fatigue, being burnt out, children that seem to be misbehaving or not being able to settle down. And we've got a bunch of diagnoses for, ADHD and autism and all of these things that are in the mental health field. And what I do is I focus on what the root cause is. And what I'm finding the simple answer is for that is just a maladaptive nervous system. It's a nervous system that's dysregulated and either highly stimulated or understimulated, and it goes down into a freeze response. And that is the work that I do to help regulate and bring the nervous system back into a state of homeostasis so that those symptoms can start to subside and the emotional healing can happen as a
I'm
result.
all for homeostasis. Anytime for the past 30 years, I've heard homeostasis, only good things followed afterwards.
Yes.
From prevention to all kinds of things that you're talking about. In fact, when you were talking about the state of being, and we've heard PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and when people think about PTSD, they think, oh, war veterans or some physical damage, and that trauma must be physical. But I have been over and over again amazed by how vulnerable we are to mental and emotional traumas, and we don't even notice that we have incurred the PTSD basically, and it becomes part of us. And also with the case of the ASD, autism spectrum disorders, many of these children in general, are trying to figure out the world and
Yes.
figure out how it works. And usually their way of learning it is they actually respond to a stimuli and see how the world responds to that. And then based on that, they tweak their behavior. And unfortunately, the processing of the neurodiverse kids is different. So many times when they put something out, the response that they get from the world is quite hostile,
Yes.
which causes them to have the anxiety and the depression as comorbidities of their conditions, not because they're depressed, but because of the reaction they're getting from their environment. Absolutely. And then if it's not addressed, that becomes part of their personality and part of their psyche.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. And what I'm
really,
finding too, that's such a great point, is that a lot of personality traits that we've really grown up for decades thinking that, oh, that's just my personality. It's really just unresolved emotional trauma. And it's a trauma response to those situations where our nervous system felt under attack or under some sort of threat. And then it just learned, our bodies and our nervous systems are so brilliant in having the ability to come in and protect us and create a defensive mechanism so that we can survive that, perceived attack or threat to the system.
And when you address those issues, homeostasis returns, not just for the mind, but also for the body. So even the
Absolutely.
functions in the gut, in your sympathetic system, all of those things normalize as a result. So I love it. So we're speaking the same language. All right. That being said, what are some of the challenges that you see when parents are coming to you with an issue regarding, first of all, how young can this be happening? And what are the ages that you really focus on and parents should really look for? Um,
Absolutely, it happens as early as in the womb with the precious mamas, right? The energy that we as mothers are resonating at is directly affecting our child that is in the womb, processing and receiving everything that we experienced, everything we think, everything we feel, everything we eat. As you know, they do teach that, but these subtleties can affect our nervous system on a very energetic level really early on, and especially pre-verbal. So between the ages of 0 and 7 is when our brain fully, we start to take on who we are as a person, and it kind of makes up our genetic disposition on how we show up in the world and how we see others and the world. So when I work with women, I typically work with them anywhere between the ages of 19 and 40 or 50 years old. I mean, when they're experiencing chronic stress, anxiety, overwhelm, inability to sleep, chronic fatigue, feeling burnt, like wired but tired. You're very wired up and you can't settle down, but you can't sleep either. Really working on those types of dis-ease that's going on internally to help them get to the root of what's going on with their nervous system. And then when I've got the mothers working with their children, what's happening is when mothers have a dysregulated nervous system, our children are co-regulating and
right.
picking up on that same regulation of ours. And that is where trauma can start with children unknowingly to the parents. So
Right.
it's not an opportunity to blame or shame yourself as a mother. We all are doing the best that we can. Just becoming aware and having the education and the knowledge of how this can affect your children and how important it is to acknowledge your own state of being and knowing how to self-regulate, that can only ripple out in a positive impact on your children.
Tiffany, you mentioned two things that are really important. One of them is that, well, we don't want to shame and blame moms, and we know that they're doing the best that they can. The second thing is that moms are oftentimes really overwhelmed. They're wearing so many hats, and there's so many demands, and they're
Yes,
being pulled in many different directions. They're being there for everybody in the family. So as a result, oftentimes when you put one more ask on top of that full plate, it can feel very heavy. So what I wanted to ask you is what would be like the one tip that you would have for these ladies so that they can start implementing, but not only to improve the situation and take things off of the plate, but also in general change the emotional well-being of the whole family and everybody around them as well as themselves.
absolutely. I created a 5-step calm method, and it's really designed to help you regulate your nervous system and really bring yourself into a state of peace and own it. And so you're absolutely right. As a single mom, I completely understand. Like one more thing that needed to be added to my plate literally could have broken me. There were times where I just could not take on any more physically, financially, emotionally, mentally, you name it. And so what I do, my practice is all about creating connection. And that is the first step of my calm method. And that is the easiest way that I can explain the difference between coming up in our heads and trying to figure things out, because that is what's really creating a lot of the stress, is that response to have to fix a problem. And so we disconnect from ourselves and what we truly need in the moment when we go into our heads and we want to figure things out. And that is a trauma response. And that is very normal. And most of us do it, and our brains go there in an effort to protect us. However, what's happening is we're disconnecting from our bodies and from what we need on an emotional level that's going to help us create the space and the homeostasis, the regulation, in order to be able to find solutions in a less stressful manner. So the first step would be to connect with what you're feeling. So when you're feeling overwhelmed, noticing and just connecting with that sense of, wow, I just creating awareness. I feel really overwhelmed right now, and just really showing up for yourself in that moment instead of going into action of trying to fix
I
and
love it.
solve.
Yeah.
Really, this can take moms, this can take anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be a long practice. I know your time is limited. And so I've implemented these practices to that you can infuse into your daily life. Driving, stopping to use the bathroom, washing the dishes, times where you can just stop and pause and just really connect and be very mindful of what is happening inside of you. What are you feeling? And instead of having to figure that out, all you're doing is connecting and showing your self-compassion there. And that would be the easiest first step to start to send a signal to the body that you are safe because you're showing up and you're meeting a need that's probably never been met before,
Right.
which is connecting with
And I
yourself.
love the fact that it's an observation without an action behind it, that you don't have
Yes.
to do something. All you have to do is just observe that you're overwhelmed or frustrated or whatever it happens to be. So that's really
Absolutely.
true.
It takes the pressure off,
Right,
right?
right.
Because a lot of that overwhelm is coming from I have to do more. I have to figure this out. Where this is just like more of a relaxing, like, oh, all I have to do is show up
And
and
I
just be a presence for yourself.
yeah, I can see how this centers the person that is being pulled in so many different directions. Centering yourself is one of those traits that's essential to your brain, uh, because your sense of identity, what you want, what you don't want, all of those things comes from that. So if you are scattered, you can oftentimes pick things that you actually have no business or no interest in getting yourself involved in because you simply weren't centered. So that's a beautiful way of getting yourself centered, just observing what you're feeling. So wonderful. Awesome. Now, I know that there's a lot more behind this. And of course, I'm sharing a lot of your information in the description. So guys, make sure you check that out. But Tiffany, can you tell our parents and parent entrepreneurs how they can get a hold of you or look for supports from you?
Absolutely. I'm on all the social media platforms. Well, the three main ones. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. It's at Tiffany Coach Me if you're looking on Instagram. And then Dr. L has the links for my Facebook and my Instagram page. I've also provided a free link to do a wake up call with me. It's a 45-minute space
Wow.
that we take free of charge to where we really unpack this in a more detail and we really look at the things that are seemingly getting in the way of you finding that peace and having that beautiful harmony that you would like to have with your children, that deep connection that you want to have with them. We really take some time out to look and dive in deeper and see if the rest of my calm method and my program, my one-on-one coaching program would be a fit for you to really help you come to that homeostasis within yourself and start co-regulating in a really healthy way with your children. So that link will be in there as well. And then I've also offered a free e-guide. I created this to help calm my own nervous system. So I just wanted to share if it will help anybody else. All free resources. It's called A Calm Home. And it's all about 11 ways to reduce anxiety and create a calm inner environment, a peaceful internal environment. So no matter how crazy things are out there, you always feel in charge and in like that you can own how you're feeling and your state of being on the inside. And everything that I've suggested in this e-guide, free of charge, there's an abundance of it. We just always aren't mindful that it's available to us. So this e-guide is a good reminder.
Awesome. Thank you, Tiffany. You are amazing. Guys, you guys can tell that Tiffany is a heart-centered individual, is a giver, and I appreciate you being on this show, not only giving us time out of your busy schedule, but also literally one of the most valuable things anybody can give is their time, and you are offering to share your expertise time, which is very rare these days, basically. So thank you for doing that. Um, Family members, please make sure that you role model the behavior of connecting to support and connecting for answers and connecting to experts. Nobody has all the answers. We need to teach our kids that we as parents don't have all the answers, but it is okay. And it is okay to also reach out and ask for help. This is a perfect opportunity and example to do that. Connect to Tiffany, make sure that you take advantage of the gifts and the time that she has offered for you guys. If you have not already done so, please make sure that you click the notifications so you get notified of all the experts like Tiffany that come to this show, share their expertise and tips, as well as their gifts. And once again, Tiff, I can't thank you enough for being here and giving us this information. It's very insightful and very on point, even scientifically, with how all of this stuff is supposed to work. And usually I love that because when you get science on your side, it just works that much better, basically. So I love that. Any final words for our audience members before we finish?
Oh, thank you so much for tuning in and listening. And when you can have peace in, that's when we can create peace out. So prioritizing your own peace is the first step, and connecting to what you're feeling, even in the midst of chaos, is a beautiful way to start that process. So sending you all so much peace and love. Thank you, Dr. L, for having me. It's been an honor.
My pleasure. All right. Until next time, guys. Beautifully said. Cheers.